Welcome to another study. Book of 2 Samuel, brought to you by the Spring Hill Church of Christ, meeting at 405 Butler Street, Spring Hill, Louisiana. I'm Mike Hughes, the teacher for this study. As we begin our study of 2 Samuel, chapters 11 to 12, I want to start out noticing this chart that shows the remainder of the Old Testament for us, the United Kingdom under Saul, David, and Solomon. And as we look at this, at 931 BC, we have Rehoboam comes on the scene, and then there's a divide between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. Jeroboam takes 10 tribes. Rehoboam has 2. We split into the divided kingdom, Israel, the northern 10 tribes, Judah, the southern 2 tribes. And that all goes along till about 721 BC, when the northern kingdom goes into Assyrian captivity. We read of that in 2 Kings. And then Judah is alone till 605. 605, the young man, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, among those that go into Babylonian captivity, serving in the royal court. And of course, you have other prophets there during that time. You have Jeremiah, you have Ezekiel, and you have Daniel that we don't see on this chart right now. But we also have Zephaniah, Nahum, and Habakkuk as prophets during the captivity time here. Of course, during the time of Judah, we have Joel, Obadiah, Jonah, Amos, Hosea, Isaiah, and Micah as the literary prophets. And then, of course, we have the return from captivity taking place 536 BC, Zerubbabel, temple, the law, Nehemiah to build the wall. And we have Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi being the last of the Old Testament. And of course, we're in the United Kingdom, and particularly 2 Samuel chapter 11 and 12. So far, we've learned David is a troubled man. Normally think about David, a king of Israel, man after God's own heart, solid as a rock, able to fight a giant. Faith never wavers, a type of Christ, as it were, we constantly hear about. And, you know, a great man. Would you trade positions with him? Well, probably you would like his lifestyle, maybe open lifestyle. But looking at a troubled man, he gets himself into trouble due to his carelessness. On the run most of his life, shed tears many times, weeping very deep. Looking a man that is totally convicted to God, never has deep inward problems he has to deal with. A man who could write the Psalms, only one who could write those Psalms, who dealt with those things. Broken heart, devastated, don't know which way to turn. The only thing that got him on his feet, total confidence in. So that's what we see as we think about David. 2 Samuel can be divided into 3 divisions. We have the triumph of David, chapters 1 to 10, the transgressions of chapter 11, and what we'll also begin to see today is the triumph of David, chapters 12 through 24, the way we divide up 2 Samuel. And of course, we're into the sins of adultery and murder and disobedience, and then troubles begin. Bible projects. Here is their rendition of 2 Samuel. Its successes and blessings we've seen. Now we're going to see his troubles and his transgression as we look in there. So we look at the trials of David, which were many, very good military, God was with him, helped him quite a bit. And here's the thriving that we've seen from David. He was king of Judah, chapters 2 through 4. He was king of Israel. Chapter 5, verse 3, he's finally made king over Israel as well. He conquers Jerusalem. We see there in 5 and verse. He returns the ark, 6:12, has it returned in his possession. The Davidic covenant we've studied about last week. He defeats the Philistines. He defeats Moab, the Moabites. Defeats the Ammonites, 10:16, and he defeats Syria. So there were some victories that David enjoyed. And then, of course, here is the extent of this kingdom that we see here as we look at this map, shows us the extent of his kingdom. And then here is the plot throughout 2 Samuel. We're at the pinnacle of David's transgressions, what we saw. And you look at on the side, troubles in his house, troubles in his kingdom. Last class, we were looking at a man, deepest moral problems he got. It's what we're going to see in this class. He's going to have a adulterous relationship. She's going to have a child and would be most embarrassed. Happened to us. Not much of a front page headline. Yeah. It's what we're going to see here. And then we're going to see the next thing. So let's begin to look at this as we look at verses 1 through 5 of chapter 11 of 2 Samuel. In verse 1, in the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his servants with him to all of Israel. And they ravaged the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained at Jerusalem. It happened late one afternoon. On his couch, he was walking on the roof of the king's house that he saw from the roof a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. And David said, "Inquired of her." And one said, "Is it not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" That was the key, wife of Uriah the Hittite. So David sent messengers and took her. And she came to him, and he lay with her. Now, a parenthetical note we have in our text here is she had been purifying herself from her uncleanness. She had had her time of the month. And then she returned to her house. And so that tells us is at the height of ovulation, she is at the prime time to get pregnant. And so she conceives. She sent and told David, "I am pregnant." Devastating news. And so that's what we've seen. And the next thing we're going to see is how David going to deal with this problem he's got brought down. So he's going to deal with it by complicating matters with another sin, the sin of murder. We're going to see. David. Yeah. Right. David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah came to him, David asked how Joab was doing and how the people were doing and how the war was going. And then David said, "Uriah, go to your house, wash your feet." Uriah went out of the king's house, and there followed him a present from the king. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord and did not go down to his house. And the whole king of Uriah did not come down to his house, but said to Uriah, have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house? Uriah said to David, the ark of Israel and Judah dwell in booths, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord shall go to my house to eat and to drink and to lie with my wife. As you live and as your soul lives, I will not do this thing. Then David said to Uriah, remain here today also, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. David invited him, and he ate in his presence and drank, so that he made him drunk. And in the evening he went out to lie on his couch with his servants of his Lord, but he did not go down to his house. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab, sent by the hand of Uriah. In the letter he wrote, set Uriah in the forefront of the hardest fighting, and then draw back from him that he may be struck down and die. Premeditated murder. And as Joab was besieging the city, he knew there were thousands. And the men of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the servants of David among the people fell. Uriah the Hittite also died. David was successful in his plan. Joab sent and told David all the news about the fighting, and he instructed the messenger, when you have finished, tell all the news about the fighting to the king when you finish doing that. Then, if the king's anger rises and he says to you, why did you go so near the city to fight? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, the son of... Did not a woman cast an upper millstone on him from the walls that he died at Thebes? Why did you go so near the wall? Then you shall say, your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead. That's what he says to tell him. So why did you go so near the wall? And so that's what he's told. So the messenger went, came and told David all that Joab had sent him to tell. The messenger said to David, the men gained an advantage over us and came out against us in the field, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city. Then the archers shot at your servants from the wall. Some of them are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. David said to the messenger, thus shall you say to Joab, do not let this matter displease you, for the sword devours now one and now another. Strengthen your attack against the city, overthrow it, and encourage him. The wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead. She lamented over her husband. And when the morning was over, David sent and brought her to his house. She became his wife, bore him a son, and the things done displeased the Lord. Now, David feels like he's got himself out of a jam, but this displeased the Lord. So we're going to see this is not the end of this matter. And so now we're going to see in chapter 12, trouble is going to come in David's house. First of all, we're going to look at the prophecy by Nathan and to show David that he is really guilty of something terrible. This son that's born from Bathsheba is going to die as a consequence. And then we're going to learn of Joab's loyalty to David. So with that, let's begin with the prophecy by Nathan, verses 1 through 5. First of several times things are going to happen to David. an acting out of a certain situation, not a parable, not a lie that Nathan is telling, but a story for the king to get the situation. He hears it about someone else, and then when Nathan says, see what his reaction is to that. And so let's begin to look. Chapter 12, verse 1. And the Lord sent Nathan to David. He came to him and said to him, there were two men in a certain city, the one rich and the other poor. The rich the poor man had nothing but one ewe lamb which he had bought. And he brought it up, and it grew up with him and with his children. It used to eat of his morsels and drink from his cup and lie in his arms, and it was like a daughter to him. Now there came a traveler to the rich man, and he was unwilling to take one of his own flock or herd to prepare for the guest who had come to him. He took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. Then David's anger was greatly kindled against Nathan. He said to Nathan, as the Lord lives, the man who has done this deserves to die. And he shall restore the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing and because he had no pity. And David said to David, you are the man. Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel. He says, I anointed you king over Israel. I delivered you out of the hand of Saul. I gave you your master's house and your master's wives and your daughters, and gave you the house of Israel and of Judah. And if this were too little, I would add to you as much more. Why have you despised the word of the Lord to do what is evil in his sight? You have struck Uriah the Hittite with sword and have taken his wife to be your wife and killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you have despised me and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. Thus says the Lord, behold, I will raise up evil against you out of your own house, and I will take your wife before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in the sight of this sun. I will take your wives before their eyes, give them to your neighbors, and he shall lie with them in the sight of this sun. Right. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel, before the sun. David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, the Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die. Nevertheless, because by this deed you have utterly scorned the Lord, the child who is born to you shall die. Then Nathan went to his house. And so there's the prophecy. And so the next thing we're going to see is David's son, as a result, the consequence of his sin. God forgave them, but there are still consequences to sin. The consequences don't go away. That's what we'll see. In verse 1, or verse 6, the Lord afflicted the child that was wife born to David, and he became sick. David therefore sought God on behalf of the child. David fasted and went in and lay all night on the ground. And behold, the stood beside him to raise him from the ground, but he would not, nor did he eat food with him. And on the seventh day, the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, behold, while the child was yet alive, we spoke to him, and he did not listen to us. How then can we say to him, the child is dead? He made himself some harm. So when David saw that his servants were whispering together, David understood that the child was dead. David said to the servants, is the child dead? And they said, he is dead. Then David rose from the earth, washed and anointed himself, changed his clothes. He went in to the house of the Lord and worshiped. He then went to his own house. And when he had asked, they set food before him. And then his servant said to him, what is this thing that you have done? You fasted and wept for the child while he was alive, but when the child died, you rose and ate food. And he said, while the child was still alive, I fasted and wept. For I said, who knows when the Lord that the child may live. But now he is dead. I shall fast. Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he will not return to me. So now we see a review of David's troubles thus far. Some of the cause of the trouble. What was the effect? There's a cause of terrors. First of all, the sin of adultery. Verse 4, we read of adultery with Bathsheba. Cause of it, Bathsheba bears a son out of wedlock today. And then we learn of the murder of Uriah, a sin that was caused to try to cover up the sin of adultery. The effect of it was he was accused, he repents, but the consequence, the child still dies. Chapter 12, verse 10, verse 14, verse 19. So consequently, consistently illustrated in the life of David's household is the principle that a disobedient life is a troubled life. That's what we see with David's troubles. That's the lesson we're to learn from this. And so here we have the sons of David. We've talked about those in Hebron already. But here is David in Jerusalem, and we have the sons born that will be born from Bathsheba. Number 8 wife there. They has 4 sons. And then other wives, there becomes 7 more. David will enjoy. But of course, this first child is born by Bathsheba is going to be is a consequence of sin, and thus his life is going to be taken by the Lord. So now, verse 24, we learn Solomon's birth here in verse 24, and a very good verse that as we study. So let's look at this verse. Then David comforted his wife Bathsheba, and he went into her and she bore a son. And he called his name Solomon, and the Lord loved him. And sent a messenger by Nathan the prophet, and he called his name Jedediah because of the Lord. And so there's what we learn about Solomon's birth. And now the rest of the chapter, we're going to learn about Joab's loyalty to David. And beginning in verse 26, Joab fought against Rabbah of the Ammonites and took the royal city. And Joab sent a message to David and said, I have fought against Rabbah, moreover, I have taken the city by waters. Now then, gather the rest of the people that gather, encamp against the city, and take it, lest I take the city and it be called by my name. That's what he tells David. take the city. So David gathered all the people together, went fought against him, and took him. And he took the crown of their king from his head. And the weight of it was a talent of gold, and in it was a precious stone. And he placed on David's head, and he brought out the spoil of the city, a very great amount. And he brought out the people who were in it, set them to labor with saws and irons and picks and iron axes, and made them toil at the brick kilns. And thus he did to all the cities of the Ammonites. Then David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. So with that verse, we come to the end of verse 31, the end of our study for this session. Next session, Lord willing, and I'll have next week, because it's my next week here at the Spring Hill Church. We're going to be studying 2 Samuel verses 13 through 15, more troubles in David's house. And we're going to hear of a sin that is just utterly disgusting. Probably one of the worst sins you could participate in, incest. And we'll have that story in our next lesson. And so with that, cheerio, bank, Bob's, you're on. If you found this video helpful and want to learn more, be sure you download the note card, if available, with this lesson. We also offer a free 4-lesson Bible correspondence course. For more information, scan the QR code to my left with your phone, and then go to the link that is provided for you. There you will find more video lessons that you can get and glean information from. We here at the Spring Hill Church of Christ want to help you grow in your knowledge and understanding of God's Word. Remember, we are in it for the likes and the subs, so be sure that you subscribe. With that, thanks for watching or listening. In the meantime, in between time, we will see you next time. Cheerio, mate. Bob's your uncle.